Hey, Tunkin Todd is here. Welcome. Finally over the flu. I feel like I'm getting over a flu or something not dissimilar from a flu. And just in time too, as I'm heading to PAX Unplugged tomorrow morning. So I want to be fresh as a daisy for that. Here's some lukewarm tea for the working man. Perkins, welcome, welcome. Um, let's see. So yeah, other than PAX Unplugged, I'll be at tomorrow. So if anybody come to PAX Unplugged over the weekend, look out for me. Give me a holler. Come say hi. Last time, actually, somebody who was it? I forget whom I ran into over there. That was fun. So come find me if you're out there. Um, it's always nice when your players. I only have two in my home campaign. Actually, got together to schedule a session without me having to be the one poking and prodding everybody. We had tried for last several weeks to get a session going, but just hadn't happened. Sorry, just reaching down. A little hex key fell down. I was trying to get it off the floor. Hadn't happened for one reason or another. The I don't feel like I have a difficult schedule, but between the three of us, it tends to be, oh, we can do Tuesday, Thursday. Oh no, wait, can't do Thursday. Oh no, wait, we can't do Tuesday. That kind of thing. So I'd kind of resigned myself that I might not actually do any gaming until after the holidays, since post Thanksgiving, things are starting to happen, and then you're right at Christmas, people are going away, all that stuff, and then New Year's. So it was kind of a surprise when earlier in the week or over the weekend, or yeah, I think it might have been just Monday or Tuesday, my players hitting the Discord saying, "Hey, love to get in the game this week. Can you someone play? Can we play on Wednesday? Is everyone available on Wednesday?" And it turned out we were, so I played. And it it forced me as these things often happen, it forced me to confront aspects of my game that I had sort of been able to just dither on because I had no time pressures. That's kind of how it works for me. If I have endless time, I will tend to, unless I get a really kind of great ideas, I'll tend to just spend up all that time going back and forth and thinking about this, thinking about that. Oh, this would be great. Well, and then maybe not be so great. Oh, this would be great. Maybe that wouldn't be so great. And then kind of going back and forth. So of course, as soon as now that I'm thinking over the last day or so, like, oh goodness, got a game tonight. I gotta finally figure some things out. Perkins says that their longest D&D group met weekly for 10 years, only a few misses. It was awesome. Yeah, I mean, I was in a long-term group and we were pretty. I mean, there were a couple of games that got canceled because we couldn't have a quorum, but I mean, we played a lot, and we weren't. I mean, I was in my 30s. It's not like I was a teenager or something. It just always seems weird next. I feel like there's less time. Everyone's got less time. That got time, but then less time. I don't know. Time dilation. Time it waits for no man. Yeah, lots of things happen. I mean, I moved was a big deal because I was living in Texas where that group was, and I moved to New York. And it seems like after I moved, things just kind of disintegrated with that former group somewhat, just in terms of like what Perkins is saying in the chat about marriage, divorce, kids, all that stuff. And so yeah, and so this group I'm with now, we all have kids, so you have bedtimes, got to go help out with bedtime and all that sort of thing. But it had been, I think I had one session prior to this one that I hadn't talked about, so I figure I can talk there. Though these sessions, not a lot of stuff is happening. I think if you look at it in terms of how far things have moved, what quote unquote plots are progressing, almost none. Uh, and they haven't been able to be very long sessions either. But decisions have been made and turns have happened and things are in place. So someone could correct me if I actually did talk about this before, but the last big thing that happened is my party had an encounter with a dragon, and this dragon we determined had been the cause of this murderous mist. So in my I had to keep on the Borderlands, or at least the Caves of Chaos. I kind of inserted it into my game. I'd always wanted to do that, and so I decided, yeah, I'm gonna do that with the Caves of Chaos. In my game, the Caves of Chaos are in this sort of hilly country in kind of a valley, and in between sort of civilizations on one side of these hills, and you kind of hills and this valley, and then the Caves of Chaos are in there. But in the middle of this valley, the caves are kind of in sort of a loop of the hills on the far side, a canyon. I don't know whatever you want to call it. In the middle, there was this for wood, this kind of eerie, weird forest. And at night, this just horrible poisonous mist would come up and basically kill you if you stayed in there. And famously, there was a one spot in this wood where you could sit and the mist didn't enter. It was kind of a shrine to a sort of a powerful, or at least remembered, sort of saintly kind of figure. But of course, my party desecrated it, and they did pick up a nice little curse for that. So it ruined their one spot. They ruined their one spot in the woods where they could kind of get in there. And that spot was really good because none of the evil things for the caves were going to go anywhere near that shrine. I mean, they're not immune to the poison either, but in terms of places they're kind of scared of was going to be that place. So I had this kind of place, but I knew it was a puzzle for them. I always said, you know what? It's going to be a puzzle. Can they just leave the place alone? If they leave it alone, it'll be a great resource for them where they can come and stay for any number of time and know that nothing's going to bother them. But or are they going to get? Are they going to let that bug of I wonder what loot is in there? We got to get it. You know, is their drive for loot going to undermine this idea of oh we found a safe spot? And sure enough, I mean it took them that place didn't last unmolested for like 10 seconds before they're digging in there trying to see what's what. And sure enough, they killed the special effect that was happening. Um, Perkins asked, "How much prep am I doing?" Not a whole lot. I try to keep the main. I try to go with sort of the overarching concepts that are happening, and then I use a lot of tables and just try to work within the context of what's going on to kind of fill in the details. Hey, Terrence. So this dragon that they had, it was a green dragon that came up. I think it was a green dragon, and I was just thinking about like, why is this green dragon here? So it was a random encounter, green dragon. Okay, so I'm thinking about it before I'm starting to, and what I'll do is I'll start to talk about kind of what's happening, right? So this green dragon, and I have it just be kind of far away, but it's coming. They can hear it, and as I'm sort of giving out these uh, almost like the intro or pre-intro. I'm just kind of putting up the context for how this green dragon is going to show up eventually. I'm thinking in my brain, well, what is this green dragon doing here? And I'm thinking, okay, they're right by the forest with the fog. It's the fog comes out at night, it's during the day, so the fog's not actually happening yet. And I thought to myself, well, what if there's powers going on? There's powerful magics and things happening over the caves of chaos. What if something about that is they kind of put this dragon in some kind of weird sleep, and we're siphoning off its basically poison breath into this fog? I was like, that's cool. I like that. I can dig it. And then so that what happened though? They don't want they they wouldn't want to, they've been doing this with the dragon for knows how long, so why is the dragon now running around? Because the party hadn't stumbled into a lair situation. They were just out and about. So I decided there, for some reason, which I don't even know yet, there'd been either some lapse of control on the part of this forces of the Chaos Caves over this dragon, or they needed the dragon to do something. They'd kind of let the dragon loose or something. Either way, the upshot was that for the time for this encounter, the party was encountering the dragon during a time where its mind was clear. It was not under the control of whatever the chaos force. It had been kind of left to be of its own mind, and it knew this. It was aware of it. It didn't know exactly what was going on, but it was aware of I'm free for this segment of time. Like I've got I don't know how many minutes I have before I'm going to lose before whatever this, and I don't know what it is that's controlling me or doing this, but I've got this few minutes that to myself. So it runs into the party, and the party knows that they're not in a position to take on a green dragon. The green dragon is kind of a jerk, but the green dragon also thinks like you guys are kind of valuable to me in this instance because if I can essentially bend you to my will, you can be my tools to do something for me when after I get back under control. Like the dragon knows, like, look, I don't know what's going on with me and this stuff. I do know that I have limited freedom. So I'm going to basically guess you or put you under a quest, some kind of, I think I call it like a dragon compulsion. You're gonna, I'm gonna, and but I made it a choice to them. It's like, look, we can not much of a choice, but like you can try to run or do whatever, and then you could die. I don't care, or you can do this thing for me. So they take on the quest with the dragon saying, you got to go, it's going to kind of come to you in time. It's just going to kind of push you in a direction. You need to follow it and kind of get me this thing that's on the other side, bring it back. And that will like free me. They think at least that whatever this artifact, whatever this thing is out there, that they will, getting that will free it from being in this kind of bondage. And of course, the party was kind of mixed on, do we want a green dragon free of bondage running around? But also thinking like, well, what kind of choice do we have? Enemy of our enemy is our friend, sort of thing. So they were like, well, I guess we're gonna do it. And this is the first thing they've really been compelled to do. Everything else has been on them. They've, when the Duke would say to them, like, look, you guys have been screwing around, you're saying all this stuff, and like prove it. They're like, yeah, we'll go and prove it. We'll prove that we're good because we're gonna do this. They've been kind of taking all this stuff just on their own steam, which of course is great. This is the first time they really have been compelled to do something where someone, essentially more powerful than them was like, look, you're gonna do this for me, and I'm gonna use magic to kind of burn it in there. So you can't just give me yes and then turn around and screw me over. Dragon compulsion. I got money. Exactly. Frederick says, have fun at PAX. Thanks, Frederick. I will. Hey, Ian. Yeah, the party's not. Ian says, hey there, Green Dragon Slayers. Not yet. Not yet. So we had kind of left it there. And then we'd had a session. And during the session, I basically gave them a bunch of options. I said, listen, we're kind of at a sort of a changing point because you've been adventuring in this one little area, and this dragon quest is going to take you kind of off in a different direction. You're kind of compelled to do it. There's been a lot of baggage going around. They've understood now that a lot of their things that they do have these consequences that they've been sort of having to deal with. And I said, listen, if you guys want to stop, you guys want to say, look, this story for these guys are over, and start fresh somewhere else. I said, it's not, it'd be the same world and everything, but it just wouldn't. Basically, I gave them the option of, listen, this is your guys' first time playing, or one of the guys, I think it's their first time playing anything. The other guys, certainly both their first times playing with me, playing in this kind of game. And I think this kind of game puts a lot of importance and pressure, important pressure, tension, whatever, on the decisions you make, because those consequences are going to come in. You decide to do this thing happens, these things are doing it. You can kind of see it all happen. And I said to them, listen, we're all kind of, we're doing this, everything's kind of their first time. You may not have realized with some of the decisions that you were making, kind of how they were going to, what the end results were going to be. You got locked out of these towns. I mean, now the thing is they're so earnest. The Lord tells them you're locked out of the towns, and they act like there are force fields around these towns keeping them out. Like they're, oh, we can't go in. I even tried to hint at them. It's like, well, you could sneak in, you get caught, you'll be in trouble. But it's not like they don't have X-ray vision, and they don't have whatever tags, RFID tags or something on you to know when you're around. I mean, it's just remember these guys, and that's it. Grow a beard, dye your hair. You probably could get into do stuff. You just don't want to say like their group name's the Quarriors, and you just don't want to say like I'm a Quarrior and do that, right? You could kind of finagle, but they treat it like off limits. No can go in. So, they had all these things. Okay, you kind of lock yourselves out of town there. Bogwig is out there running his mouth and making your life hard. You swore you were going to take down the caves of chaos, and now you're looking at it going, God, these caves are kind of harder than we thought. We're not having a lot of success. And plus, we're locked out of the places that we could go to for support. So right now, without sneaking in and doing stuff like getting more hirelings or doing some things is kind of difficult. They got this curse from them desecrating that shrine. So they got a lot of kind of baggage on them. And I kind of said, listen, if you guys want to say like we've learned a lot, and now it's almost like when you play a video game or something, and you play through and it's messy and you make a lot of mistakes, and then you go, okay, I'm going to start over. And this time now I know at least a bit. So now I kind of know, and I can start from a better base. So I gave them the opportunity to say, look, if you guys want to have these guys' story, they'll go off and go. And then you can start over, kind of somebody new. Things will still be going on, but maybe you'll engage with different aspects, things like that. You can. Perkins asks, was the compulsion from a Gaesh type spell? Yes, similar. Though I added some stuff to it, and I've been kind of flavoring it as kind of a special dragon thing, which I like. But essentially, yeah, it's a spell. So they were definitely compelled to literally go. So I gave them that option, and there was some pretty serious discussion about it. But I think they wanted to head forward. They wanted to go. So I think we had ended that with, okay, we're going. And then the session before this one was, okay, we're finally going to go. So they start traveling. Now, I had rolled up in one of our earlier sessions, I'd rolled up a Gorgon because in the expert set, you get creatures of all types. So a Gorgon had come through and they avoided the encounter with the Gorgon. Um, which in this game, I think it's the Gorgon. In expert sets, basically like a metallic. I mean, it's a really tough. I don't know how they would if they'd gotten into a fight with the Gorgon. I don't know what they would have done to it, but it's basically a metal skinned, massive rhinoceros essentially. And the Gorgon kind of went off in the night. And in I had this idea of the Gorgon going and basically attacking Quarry Bridge. And so when they started to near Quarry Bridge, coming out of the valley, I was going to talk about seeing kind of petrified things, and the Gorgon turns things to stone. And I've been getting a lot of animal creatures that have stone or stone effects. So I'm trying to figure out how that should work into the Caves of Chaos. But in any case, but they avoided it. They avoided the town so much that I didn't really get to, other than them seeing, like, I think I started to hint that there was like some trees that were kind of stone or there were some weird things, but they were kind of trying to stay kind of stealth because, they were afraid anybody from this town they didn't want anyone in the town to see them, that they couldn't get close enough to see that, where I was going to kind of show how this Gorgon had basically, um, the town had ended up succeeding in driving it off, but it had caused, mass damage. And I thought that would be kind of an interesting scene for them just to look at and just again see the consequences of what's happening at the caves and everything, and saying, oh, this thing just didn't walk out into the night and do nothing. No, it went out to, like, to me, I just think of like the caves, all these creatures are kind of being sort of pulled towards the caves, and then the caves is kind of starting to send out those, like, a little bit of, let's send out that Gorgon and kind of see what the defenses are like out there. See what's going on, right? That was sort of like, even if they lose the Gorgon, it was like, let's just go and see how ready they are and what's going on, kind of deal. But they didn't get to see that. So they're moving around. So they're keeping the outside. They're circling the perimeter of the town. They're kind of, I talk about how the town had cleared out because it's definitely a military type installation. So they walls, and they cleared out so much of the ground around them to give them open sight lines for bows and things like that. But they stuck to the far perimeter, kind of went around the outside, came back down to the town, came back down to the road, and were moving. It just so happened that they'd actually been here, or at least the one player who was with me from the beginning of this campaign actually been here before, when they'd wanted to go find a witch, and someone had mentioned that there was kind of like a wise lady, and it was kind of in this area that you kind of go off into the woods and then meet the wise lady, which he did. And I think I mentioned, it might have mentioned in some other stream anyway, when he went to the witch, he made a bargain, gave this letter from this barber surgeon, and did a trade where he let the witch see this letter, and she gave him back the same letter in quotes, but I don't actually have an idea yet what she changed, if anything, from the original letter, but she got to read it and potentially give him some kind of counterfeit. The player didn't know what was in the letter to begin with, and he couldn't tell if it had been molested or not. He didn't check, he didn't know the content. So it's kind of open question of, well, what did the witch want with the letter? And then what did this, and it's not really a witch, it's more of like a Fae, a powerful Fae entity. What did this individual want with this letter, and what they do to it? I haven't figured that out yet, but they'd been there before. It just so happens they're in the same area again, and similar to the first time they're here, night's falling and trouble arrives. The first time this player was here with another player character, that player left. Uh, some kind of, like, I called them hyenodons. They were sort of, I think I rolled up gnolls and I decided to flavor them like hyenas. Came through, the hyenas were looking for something, but they were able to hide, and the hyenas passed on, and I think they made a break for the woods, or maybe they ended up just hiding there, and then in the morning went to the woods. So they had that encounter happened the first time we were here. This time they were here, I was rolling for a random encounter. I got trolls. So now some trolls show up, and these I also put are kind of on the lookout for the party, or at least they're looking for somebody. Not necessarily for the party, but they're looking for somebody. So they kind of burst out far side of the road. They're a couple hundred feet away. It's dusk. The party happened to be settling down for camp, and there are all these kind of little hillocks there. And so they have these little depressions in the ground that the party is able to kind of duck down and sort of hide behind. And the trolls are there, and they're kind of, I kind of have to try to get this concept. They're kind of sniffing the air, kind of looking for movement, sort of swaying from side to side, and they're just kind of doing that. And the party's wondering, like, what they're discussing what to do. And they had some really, I mean, it would have been they had some bad ideas. Like, okay, I'm going to jump out of the hole and I'm going to cast my one spell or something. I'm like, this is going to turn out I'm thinking to myself, oh boy, because there was like 3 or 4 trolls, and um, it wouldn't have been good. But then one of the other players is like, okay, he's this player's character has the kind of physical sort of Jedi ability, so they can increase their speed, and they can also do this kind of sort of hide in plain sight type thing. It's illusory, but they can kind of hide. So he was going to sneak out, and I don't remember exactly what his original plan was. Original plan was something like he's going to sneak out, get around, and then maybe do something. So he sneaks out. They do get a save on this illusory effect, and it just so happened that they made their save. So when the guy's like creeping out and he's kind of like fully exposed out there looking at them, all of a sudden they see him. Perkins asks, is there some sort of force or power like Lovecraftian god Ugdru driving the chaos around the caves? I imagined something like that, Perkins, but I hadn't actually gotten that far yet. I leave a lot of stuff. So my personal style is I leave a lot of stuff enigmatic until I need to define it. So at this point, the party is far enough removed from the caves. They've never gotten close enough to the caves where I felt like I've had to then say, this is what it is. So I just let it float around. And what I find that helps for me is that other elements that come up, either interesting to me, interesting to the party, I have the opportunity to weave them in. So, for example, if something were to happen in my next session, I'm like, oh, this thing is great. Then I can say, oh, what if this thing is involved with the caves, and I haven't cut off any of those possibilities yet. And the party's not hasn't been gotten, they never got to the back of the caves or the kind of inner sanctum of the cave. So they have no idea what it is. Nothing's been said about it. So I just kind of leave it enigmatic for now. It's a mystery. And I enjoy that. And then something will happen. I'll get some inspiration. Something will happen in the game, and I'll be like, oh, maybe that's what's causing it. Or, oh, isn't it this person? So yeah, there is some dark force moving back there, but it is as yet unknown to all. No, Perkins, it's not nature based. They definitely have seen that there is something compelling these creatures. So they've taken goblins prisoner. They actually still have one goblin with them. And I talked about how their eyes kind of have, I think it's like either a greenish or kind of purplish tinge to it. There's definitely like, and one of the players actually felt the compulsion because their alignment was chaos. They were actually feeling it a bit, so they know that something of chaos is pulling them back there. It's not just a nature thing. Um, so, and I felt that was appropriate for the Caves of Chaos because that's the kind of answer. I don't remember if the originally in B2 they talk about that, but my idea was thinking about why all these creatures are all kind of hanging around and being somewhat sociable with each other is because they're under this kind of compulsion. Brian Smith says it's really funny how a DM really needs to evoke the players into wanting to engage. Hard to trust it. Hard to trust it though. Always an over prepper. I don't think. I mean, look, I don't think there's anything. I mean, like it's always about what works for you, and I'm definitely not. I mean, the only thing about over prepping is just a matter of your time. If you have time to do that and you enjoy doing it, great. If it's something that's going to drive you nuts, and you always feel like you're behind the 8 ball, over prepping, then maybe it's something you want to look at, um, not doing. So, but in my case, I kind of will play it sort of loosey goosey, and then I'll try to connect. I kind of feel like I've taken some inspiration from what I've read about Tolkien, and that how he would address letters, like after Lord of the Rings would come out, people writing him letters about all kinds of stuff. And Tolkien, instead of trying to come up with something just out of whole cloth, like why is this like this, he would look at his own writing and say like, well, what did I say? And he'll look at those and try to put it together. And I try to do something similar where I look at, well, what's happened in the game, like, and then somebody shows up and something happens and something that adds that other bit of context. And I look and I sort of like what I do in these mind maps. I'll kind of think like, oh, well, this line seems to naturally go from here to here. Therefore, it probably does go from here and here. And then, I will make that connection. But it really helps when, one, it's always about stuff that hasn't been revealed. If it's been revealed at the table, someone said to them, yes, it is a chaos crystal controlled by the Demogorgon, blah, blah, that's in the back of the Caves of Chaos. I'm not going to undo that. It's like, that's been said, it's down, but no one's said that yet. They don't have that information. No one does. So I feel free of just leaving it until I need to. So for this game, so let me just continuing on here. So this is not even the past session. This is the session before. They're hiding down. The trolls have seen the one character. He's kind of sitting out there in open ground, and he's going like, "Oh geez, they see me." The trolls start to run, but he triggers his like speed boost because he's got these powers to really like increase. And when he turned on the jets, they couldn't catch him. I mean, I'm looking at him like even if he would had like 3 times whatever, he could go like 3 times as fast. And I was looking at their speed, I'm like, yeah, he's done. Like he's not. I mean, he's done in the sense that they're not going to be able to catch him, but they're going to try because they don't know what his top end speed is, and they just see this thing running. So he runs for the woods, and they chase him into the woods. The rest of the group kind of watches them all run off into the woods, kind of pops their heads up and goes, "Oh, well, I guess we should probably follow them to see what's going on." So they also go in the woods. And this was the woods where this witch, in quotes, lives, but it's also this portal into the Fae. So, and I don't know how much they were really aware. They're aware of it now, but they weren't aware of it then. That they were kind of moving. But they have them. I have them seeing like green. Like the one player's running. He's running. He runs in the woods. He loses the trolls. Trolls don't know where he is and is far away anyway. And he comes to like a green man, like a green man face in the tree, and it actually talks to him. Now this player's character, I called it a green mantle, and this is a human that was brought up in the Fae, and so has kind of in sort of absorbing it, has absorbed some kind of interesting things. That's where they get their kind of super stuff, comes from this kind of association with the Fae. So he's familiar with some of the Fae stuff. He was basically adopted by a Fae family. Uh, so the thing kind of recognizes him and says, welcome home, Green Mantle. And he doesn't really know what that means. He's like, huh? But he keeps going. And the other party end up in the woods coming through somewhere else. So they're in the Fae. So it's kind of funny. And I was joking with the players that we've kind of come full circle, because this is one of the first things that they did when the game had just started. One of the first things they did was delivered a message. They delivered a message, then decided to go find the witch, ended up in these woods. And now they've kind of all this stuff's happened. Now they're back like here, but they were separated. So the Green Mantle person ends up at the house where the witch is, where the other one ends up at this place where essentially there's and this was there when they were. So the first time they came, they ended up at this clearing, and in the clearing was basically a Wicker Man, and in the Wicker Man was this thief. Was kind of like he was a human. I think he even, I don't know if he said he was a thief, or I think later on they found out he was a thief, and they ended up freeing the human from the Wicker Man, and the human ran off. This time when they show up at the party, not the one guy, but the rest of the party shows up in the clearing, they see the Wicker Man, and it's like a giant Wicker Man, and the trolls are in the Wicker Man. Of course, they're not going to free the trolls. I just thought that was a nice touch, and I thought it showed the power of the Fae. And so I was like, this Fae person's not going to let some trolls run loose in her area. It's like, that's not going to stand. So the trolls are in the Wicker Man, and in fact, when they turn to leave, they kind of turn around, and kind of behind them, they kind of just feel the flames rise up, and they hear all the screams of the trolls that then quickly go silent. So they go up. So eventually, the party comes together at the witch's house, witch in quotes, but that's what they call her. Which invites them in. She remembers the one guy who was a dwarf. He's like, "Oh, like I remember, like we had a good deal before. I gave you some information." And I think she even says something like, "It was really kind of information that was kind of tough, and it was probably above your pay grade, but you asked for it, and I got it for you. And thank you for letting me see that letter." And sort of like, "Well, what brings you here?" So this is what it came down to. So I'd been talking about, well, maybe you guys want to start the game over again or do something else. But here it was like, here's a chance for them that now there's like, okay, what do you want to do? It is basically what it came down. What it boiled down to is, this was opportunity for them to like, what do you want to do? Because the witch intimated that basically they could probably help you with one of your problems. I let them know that because they asked about the curse of like everything kind of basically turning sour on them, or everything, all their greed sort of turning against them. And I was like, that she can't, that's actually like, that's the strongest of the things. She's like, yeah, that one, you're going to have to you're going to do that one yourself. That's actually that's the strongest of the curses. But these other two options they had was undo the dragon compulsion, or their other idea was to make the Viscount forget about basically everything done wrong. So there are these two things they were weighing. We can get rid of the dragon, try to see if she can get rid of the dragon compulsion for us, or see if she can make the Viscount, like, get us a clean slate with the Viscount. And I'm not sure what that means. I was actually thinking about if they chose that one, that would actually be a lot of fun for me to kind of look at, like, well, what would that mean? What would that look like? Would it be something like in, what was it, Spider-Man, whatever the latest Spider-Man movie, where the way to get them out was basically make everybody forget them, that they exist? Or would it be something else? Like, I was like, oh, that could be really interesting, and kind of almost like a genie sort of, okay, like, what are you asking? What are you really asking me for? And then like, all right, how might this work? So we left that session, or we at the end of the session, I just like, we'll just determine. I asked them to determine which one of those two options they want to say. She can do one. She'll do one for you, and it's a bit. But I told them this is a business deal, much like with the information and the letter the first time around. This is a business arrangement. There's going to be a price. Which one do you want her to do, or which one are you going to present to her? This is what we're asking for. They thought about it, said, okay, we want to get rid of the dragon. We want to have this dragon compulsion lifted from us. Okay, fine. And then I said, all right, and I will sometime before or at our, our next game or before next game. I think I even said like I'll try to get it before the next game, but next game session will start with this morning, and she's going to present her side of what she wants out of this bargain. And then that was like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I'd been sitting there thinking ever since, like, what is she going to ask for? What is she going to ask for them to do? But I had this idea that kept recurring over and over again, and because I'm dealing in this enigmatic kind of stuff, I still left myself some room. But I decided that I wanted them to get a little bit more. I thought, like, let's have some fun in the Fae realm. Let's not send them back um, to the regular world so soon. So I thought, well, she's going to ask them to deliver something to her, or for her, deliver something for her to someone else, to another Fae person. They could do some kind of Fae, kind of have some fun adventuring, and they could explore the Fae, which would give me opportunities to explore the Fae. So I determined that okay, they have to take this kind of big flappy sort of parcel of stuff, and they got to take it to to this other Fae thing. Now I really like the idea of the courts, but I didn't want to do what I think is just the default, which is like court of the moon, court of the, or like midnight court and the noon. I don't know. I didn't want to do that. So actually, my courts, all these Fae, I decided was on. I went with tarot. So they're basically the whatever, like the minor arcana, whatever the kind of the suits in the tarot are these different courts, and there even are bigger, other courts, but these are the kind of the major courts. So I went with the Court of Pentacles. You got to go to the Court of Pentacles, and you got to find the Page of Pentacles, and you have to deliver this kind of envelope stuff to him. Now, the idea, the idea that I'm working on right now, whether it'll stick or not, because again, it hasn't been revealed, so I can change my mind, is that the Page of Pentacles has actually made a deal with old Bogwig, working with old Bogwig. And so by giving them the Page of Pentacles, she is delivering some ingredients to the page. She was then going to do something to give to Bogwig, which is gonna help Bogwig get control of Nobbs Hill. So there's a lot of like, I'm really enjoying this idea that Bogwig has also petitioned some of these Fae powers, and it's just working out. And since they're all kind of, one of the things I'm trying to impress is these Fae people. They're not human. They don't think like us. They don't have the same things like us. They don't have the same uh, allegiances in the way that we do. So like, yeah, the witch is going to help them out, but then this other things help. Like she's just kind of in business, and it's like, okay, well, she doesn't care that Bogwig, even though the party might be mad at her. It's like or the Bogwig's their enemy. Like she doesn't care. It doesn't concern her. So she's just kind of fulfilling, and she might not even know. She's just fulfilling this obligation or some kind of transaction with this Page of Pentacles. The Page of Pentacles is made a deal with Bogwig, or it might even be another intermediary before Bogwig, and then that's going to happen. And I kind of have the idea, the hope maybe that the party will suss out some of like what this stuff's going to be used for, kind of on the way. And so it'll give them a real kind of interesting issue. Like they want free of the Dragon's Curse, but to get free of the Dragon's Curse, they have to deliver this thing to this person, which is going to make this other thing that they have like worse or more annoying, or whatever. Like I feel like that'll be a lot of fun if it gets there. We'll see if it gets there. So they're and then this was this bargain they made, and then it was funny. One of the players said, "So we're giving up. We're trying to get out of doing one forced mission to do another forced mission." And they're like, "Yep," but they want to do it. This one will not be very long. The thing with the dragon was going to be pretty involved, I think, and more long term. This one I think will be shorter, so they won't be under the thumb too much. And I think I'd rather do this than be literally magically compelled by a dragon to do something. That seems got a lot less leeway. Let's see. Brian Smith says, let's see, what is it? What does the witch want? The party to buy her an MLM multi-level marketing. See, I think the witch is already a multi-level marketer. So the party leaves the witch with their quest, and okay, they're gonna go. And so I got to explore the Fey world. And what I've told the player of the Green Mantle is that while he was in the Fey lands, and now I told him that overnight and whatever, he realizes he's in the Fey. Because I think one thing they didn't realize was that this witch's house wasn't in their woods. And I thought, I tried to develop it as like it really feels different where the witch's house is, but they could have thought, oh, it's just enchanted or something. It's like, no, this is you're in the Fae. And so I make clear that as they spent more time here and got more acclimated, and they leave this kind of bubble of direct influence that the witch has, that the green man's like, you're in, you feel the feeling, you're in the Fae. So this concept of the Fae the Fae, the realm here, the land, is that it kind of gets to my let me step back one remove. So my cosmological idea here is that the prime material plane is basically Earth, like where we are, right? That still has like the original like physical like flame of kind of creation. The stuff in there is inherently real. When you get out into the plains, it's not. It's like it's not that it's fake per se, but it doesn't have that like natural like flame of creation. So if you go to, for example, you go to the say you go to the elemental plane of Earth, okay, and you think, oh my gosh, it's you got rocks and earth everywhere. Yes, but it's not the same as like the rock in the world. It's almost like the template of rock. It's like it's kind of the sort of the rock from which maybe the real rock has been defined, but it doesn't have that like almost like, I don't know, chaotic natural sort of thing. It's like it's almost a like an image of rock rather than like real like rock. There's something missing about it. Everything. And so to me, this is why the prime material plane brings everything together. Why do all these creatures care about what the heck's going on in the prime material plane? Because that concept of the prime material, like this is the stuff that has that first, like that big bang, all the energy release, all that magic, everything put in there, like boom, this is where it is. Everything else is kind of infused with it, but this is where like the thing still is. And so everything else, sure, they could make diamonds in the elemental plane of Earth, but they're never going to be the same as diamonds in the prime material. They can't be used in magic because they don't have any magic in them. They're kind of dead in a sense, or they're inert with the kind of force of like life and magic. Like, yeah, like the stuff there, but it's kind of it's not real in the same way that the stuff in the prime material planes were. So thus that's why the prime material plane is always hyper important, because you need a diamond to cast a spell. It needs to be a prime material diamond, not a diamond that's been created or comes out of the planes somewhere. You need, whatever, got to get it from the prime material plane. So everybody constantly always has a relationship with the prime material plane. Everything is looking inward. So in the Fey realm, it's all about memory and emotion and all of this kind of collective consciousness and unconsciousness. So a why does this, like things can move, things can be forgotten. If you get forgotten, you can actually become sort of isolated off of the geography of the land because people don't remember you're there anymore. If you in powerful entities will have that effect. Like if they're dour and mean, the sky around them will be, raining all the time and cloudy because they kind of command that. And is the more powerful ones, because there's so much memory and they kind of have mind share, they kind of stick. Like the more mind share you have, everybody knows you're as solid as you're going to be. People start to forget you, suddenly things are going to be less solid. Even the geography will become less solid. You might move, you might fall asleep in one spot, you wake up, you're somewhere else because there wasn't that force saying that you belong in this spot. Everything's very fluid in a way, even though it's not like you're on water, but it has a very fluid effect. And only the most powerful things and the things that kind of keep reiterating their existence in sort of a mental kind of way, and sort of like in compelling people to kind of know them and remember them, can will stay in the same place. And there are some things like exceptions that like my idea here with the witches thing is she's kind of tethered to this access point, like she's kind of hooked into this one spot with the that has this like kind of back and two-way portal between the prime material plane and the Fae plane. So she's kind of got somewhat of an anchor, and there are some different things you can do, but that's kind of the concept. So it was, I went through and kind of was explaining this to them using kind of the Green Mantle's experience, but also saying that the Green Mantle had been isolated. Like he was with a Fae family, but they didn't let him leave their estates. He didn't just get to wander around. Partly that's for his own safety, but partly because they try to keep a lot of this stuff's secret. And I even had at one point where they're kind of entering this sort of neutral space in the Feywild that like the moon and the sun were both out at the same time because nothing is pulling on them to determine one thing or another. So they're just kind of like on one side of the day, it's kind of moving towards morning. On the other side of the thing, it's moving towards kind of like it's night. Because nobody's exerting any influence to do it one way or another. And that's kind of all the natural laws are kind of tied into. I mean, the most basic laws, since they're understood by everybody, they kind of, you jump, some kind of gravity brings you down because that's accepted by everybody. But a lot of this other stuff, it's really onto this influence of either people collectively or the powerful entities sort of have enough magic or enough power to do it themselves. Brian Smith says the plane of rock is like the STL file of a rock, and the real thing is on the material plane. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's like this template, but it's missing that like life. Like everything is imbued with some kind of life, but outside the prime material plane, or in the prime material plane, that life is also has like a magic, which is why divinities always look for worshipers on the prime material plane because it is that connection from them to that power. That's why they care about people. Like, why do the god of these gods care about what's going on in the prime material plane when there are endless other planes? Because those endless other planes, they can have all the believers in the world in those worlds. It's like an inert force, whereas the connection with the people, the beings on the prime material plane, still have that flame, that original flame of creation, that kind of magical essence that can be used is still there. Um, so this is going to be fun in terms of the Fae thing because you can have a lot of variability and things can happen. They can go towards someone's stronghold and then it can be sunny over there. Like they can pass the mark and all of a sudden it's sunny, even though it was night in the other place, or it could be cloudy and rainy, or things could move. They could fall asleep and end up somewhere else because nobody really knows they're there, and it'll be a lot of fun. I'm still kind of thinking about what I want the Pentacle Court to be like and how that's going to work when they get there. I kind of goofed because I had the lady say, "Oh, it's a couple of days," but I think I don't. I think I want time to be more elastic. But I think I'm just going to have that be something she said that she didn't really mean in a real sense. Because I kind of like the idea of like basically people will tell you how far something is because of everything's going on. It's like, well, how far do you remember it being? It's like being kind of long, short, which is kind of nearby, you know, uh, a day away or something like that, or over the past the horizon, or like long, right? And then it's kind of like it's really sort of in some ways as far away as everybody remembers it being. Anyhow, they're on the road. They get down the road, they do it, and I'm just talking about okay, the thing with the sun and the moon being out at the same time is kind of weird, but it's just kind of there and it's quiet. And they ask like, "Oh, the birds," and I'm like, "Yeah, like you hear some birds and things," but I kind of tried to play up the fact that everything's just more like the wilder feels wild. Like the birds are a little bit more vibrant. They're not as scared. You remember you walk by a sparrow in the real world and sparrow flies away. This sparrow's kind of looking at you a little bit more. It's a little bit bigger. It's brighter plumage. Its calls are louder. Just kind of trying to play up, but like everything's just a little bit amped up from what you might remember in your backyard. So they're walking along, rolled up another random encounter. All right, so let's see. So I go to the books and do another roll. What do I get? I get Knowles again. So I say, okay. I mean, this is where the dice, it's like, are the dice, sometimes you feel like the dice are just against you. Here I felt like the dice are just nudging me along. I talked about earlier how when their first time they kind of came through here, they ran across a pack of these Knowles that I had sort of put my own spin on, kind of as being more hyena based, and that they were looking for something and passed them by. So here I have these hyenas show up again, kind of thing. So I and so what I and they were in a thing where they're basically open country. It's open country. There was like, it was kind of, I was saying that they had gone from sort of forest, they were kind of moving down the kind of a very slight slope down a hill. They got to this road, and as they're going down the road, it's kind of into sort of moors, so sort of kind of rough clumps of grasses, maybe a little bit of um, not even hills, some kind of maybe like elevated hills and depressions kind of thing, but really slight, mostly flat. And then kind of on the far side of the road, heading becoming wetter into more sort of wetlands. There's not a whole lot to do. So, they got to see them from far away, and I just said that they'd put like this barricade across the road. They'd put like they pulled up a couple of the few trees that they could spot out here. They just uprooted them, dragged them across the road. And then when the party got closer, they ducked behind the barricade. I rolled reaction, and it was like a pretty neutral. I think it was neutral, slightly positive reaction. And the party doesn't. The party walks up, and they're just kind of, they're not trying to fight. No one. The party did not take on an aggressive posture. They basically called out and was like, "Ho there!" Like, what are you doing? And one of the hyena kind of dogs. I had them call each other dogs. Pops up, and they start having this conversation, and I referenced back to the original. So what happened was, originally the party delivered a letter to this barber surgeon in the town Corey Bridge. They then took a return letter, but instead of going right back to give the letter back, even though the barber surgeon who gave them the letter was kind of like, please, this is like really important, take it. And like, I think I'm in trouble, I think he tried to kind of persuade them they were in trouble. They were like, okay, sure, but we want to go take this foray out and see this witch while we're here. That took a couple of days. When they came back to the town, the barber surgeon had vanished and his offices had burned. And that was the last. And this was kind of this like hanging Chad there. That was the last that they'd seen or heard of that, and it had never come up until the dice delivered unto me the pack of hyenas, who I was like, yeah, sure. Because in terms of actual fictional time, it hasn't been that long. So sure, why not? The hyenas were looking for him out there, and now they were looking for him in here. And maybe they got word, and I had thought about, because they kind of said like, maybe they'd be on this road. It's like, okay, interesting. So yeah, they're looking for the same kind of person, and this kind of comes out because they're not guileful. So they're just like, yeah, we're looking for this guy. Do you know him? And then it kind of dawned on the one player. It's like, oh, like I know that guy. Like, but we're not the guy, but I know the guy. So they have a whole conversation about this going back. And I had this thing where the dogs just were insisting on having hostages, like that. It's like, like, hey, what would be really good here? I think the leader of the hyena guys. Their thought process is this, like, because it turned out like, oh, your guys are mailmen, you deliver stuff. Well, here's what you do. I'll send a couple of my dogs with you. You send a couple of your guys with me, and then when you deliver the guy to us, we'll give your guys back. It's called hostages. Works out really well. Love it. Really, I just had him sort of be just sort of in love with this concept of hostages. We'll exchange hostages. Isn't it wonderful? And then you, because you're a male person, you deliver things to people. You will deliver unto me this thing that I want. And the party kind of sussed out, and it just made sense. So I ran with it. They're like, oh, because the party was thinking like, wait a minute, okay, these guys, they want something to be able to tell to their superiors or whatever they've made progress. They need something to show like, okay, we've done something today. We're not, that was the kind of tack. And then I thought about it, I was like, yeah, sure, that makes sense. They probably do want to go back because they're not masters of anything. These dogs are working for somebody. And I don't even know who yet, but they're employed. So yeah, of course they want to go back to their boss and say something or other. So the party kind of does enough dealing with them. It gets to the point where they convince the dogs to let them just bring one of the dogs with them and not leave any hostages behind. And then this will, give proof that they're doing what they wanted, that they're doing what they're supposed to do. And then if they find the barber surgeon, they'll kind of arrange for that. And it was a nice callback because the one player been like, man, I'd totally forgotten about that guy, in this thing. And I'm like, yeah, and it's back. It probably felt like I had shoehorned that in somehow, and really it was just that the dice just spoke to me. But I get to kind of close the loop a little bit on that, though. Again, it leaves me with this position of, well, now I have to start thinking about, well, what was the barber surgeon's big thing, like the letter? Like I'm gonna have to start to unravel that mystery because it's gonna be meaningful because they're gonna run into him potentially at some point. And I don't necessarily know that the barber surgeon is here in the Fae. Though, of course, it's going to be very appealing that maybe he'll be at the Court of Pentacles too, which I kind of like. Could add some more flavor in there, but we'll see. And then that's pretty much that they made that deal at the end of the session, and that was basically it. I'm trying to think if there's anything that like I really learned. So the couple things I had to do is I had to kind of I had these ideas of the Fae realm how I wanted to run it, but this is the first time that I've had to communicate it to the players and kind of get it in a sense of this is how it feels in my head, but now I have to kind of put it out there. I feel like we're on the same page with how it works. It doesn't seem too weird. I think they're kind of digging it. So I mean, I really like the idea, so I hope they're digging it. But I feel like we're on the same page with that, which was good. I really like being able to close some loops on things and bring in some things back in the fold that happened. So these guys that disappeared, these creatures they ran into, now suddenly they're finding those creatures again. Now suddenly this issue about this guy who they'd forgotten about because kind of came and happened and then sort of disappeared. They never paid any mind to it. Now it's coming back around again. So I like that. And then I'm intrigued with what they're going to do, assuming they're able to finish this and deliver this parcel. And depending on what happens in the court, it could be a lot of fun because they're going to be torn in order to fulfill their commitment to the witch, they need to deliver that package. But if they find out that package is basically headed to Bogwig, like it's kind of like an Iran Contra, like drugs and armaments, right? You think you're doing something good, and you realize this good thing that you think you're doing is going to lead to somebody doing something bad down the road. Not only that someone going to be doing something bad, but somebody that you hate, your enemy, doing something bad. Do they rethink what's happening? They also were wondering, like, ooh, since we're in the Feyland, like, have she already taken care of the dragon curse and like taken it off us already? And I had thought about that. This one I thought about advance. And I said, no, but you're not in the curse is powerful, but you're not in the material plane anymore. So it was like you still feel it. It's in the background. Hasn't gone away, but it's been very muted, kind of toned back. Now, if they just spent ages of time here, it probably would still affect them in some way, but it's very far removed. So that's kind of saved them. And that was kind of the whole idea. I think that's another reason why I was thinking towards having them do something here so I could play around with. Like outside the prime material plane, the dragon's curse it's manageable for right now. If you decide just to retire in the Feyland, it would catch up to you eventually, but you have time to do something. So that's where they're at. So it was a really fun session. I'm glad I got everybody together. No combat. It was all social stuff. I don't think I asked them to roll any dice for anything that session. Actually, there was no checks of and it wasn't a long session. Maybe 2.5 hours, maybe a little bit less with kibitzing and asking folks about the holidays. I only rolled the dice a couple times. It was really all about that random encounter. But I'm really fine with those types of sessions. My party's fine. They weren't aching to fight anything. I mean, certainly that when the dogs showed up, they could have gone to war. It would have been tough 'cause I think I rolled like seven or eight of those gnolls, and they had cover behind their little homemade barricade, and there was not much for the party to do. And everybody was it's kind of like mid-morning. In fact, the party's the one that's kind of looking into the sun. So they had no advantages if they were going to fight. They could have run. Um, but I enjoyed the fact that they just kind of played it off. They were just like, "Yeah, we're here. We're here just doing deliveries." And then the dogs were not sent for them specifically, so there's no reason for the dogs to be hostile. But I did say that someone told them to be here on this road, which is another interesting thing about who told them. Who knew? I don't know yet. Did the witch tell them? The witch I've been playing is kind of like her persona is like as a kindly old woman, but hopefully they don't just see that. My party's very earnest, so they might just believe her. But I think the fact that she's making deals and not being, she's got her own game playing, and who knows, what she's got going on. Brian Smith says, "I love the idea. I think this is about the sort of the sort of Fey realm being held together by kind of collective memory." Especially how holidays and repeating songs and traditions are important to Fae because it's like what keeps them going, also what keeps the boogeyman going, which seems, hey, yeah, there's a lot of that going on. And it does lead some interesting things because there could be some fun stuff if you're trying to find somebody who most folks have forgot. Where are they? Like I imagine that there's almost these places that are kind of floating. It's almost like Schrodinger's abode, kind of like a real quantum ogre, like this thing you can't really get to it until you can kind of imagine your way there, and that's how you get through. Because they're trying to figure out there was one other place in the Fae realm they've been to, and they're wondering about how to get back there. And I was like, you have to be able to kind of imagine your way because it's not connected to you, but it doesn't really have to be. But you kind of have to be able to imagine how to get there. And the better you do it, the kind of closer you can sort of pull it to you. But for things that are super well known, I mean, that works for kind of smaller things. If it's super well placed, you're not going to be able to do that because you're just not stronger. You have to overcome the memories and sort of the power and everything of all these things that have put their belief into. You can't. If everybody knows the Eiffel Tower's in Paris, you can't just mind pull it over to your backyard because everybody knows it's in Paris. But if there was something that you saw all by yourself and nobody remembers it, that one you might be able to pull because you're the strongest memory. And I think it could be a lot of fun. It definitely makes some interest. It'll be make travel and things interesting because it can be a little bit more abstract, a little bit more weird. We can have all kinds of different terrains bump up against each other and not really have to worry about it making sense because it's not the real world. Like, yeah, all the terrain and stuff seems real, but you could easily go over a high point and suddenly it's a desert because some force there has decided that it's desert. So it'll be a good time. It'll be a good time. So I was really glad to get the session. I'm glad I got it before PAX, before another we lost another couple days to PAX. Again, not much. It's like a lot happened, but not much happened in terms of progress. Not much was made, but they've made decisions. Now they have they have some purpose, and they got to kind of pick which one they wanted, and they get to pick what they're doing, but they got to pick why they're doing it. So they're still kind of captaining their own ship. I was kind of really interested if they were going to go the other way and say we want the Duke to forget forget that we made these promises. It was kind of like we promised, or it was the Viscount, not Duke. So like we promised the Viscount to clean out the Caves of Chaos. It's kind of like we don't want to do that anymore. So can we have the Viscount forget that we were involved with any of this stuff? But they didn't give that up. So their memories of the Viscount and everything are still going to be all there. But yeah, I think we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. And part of the thing I like about keeping everything kind of loosey goosey and open is that if they get I have nothing. I have not only don't have anything planned for beyond this bit. I don't even really have planned what's going to happen when they get to this thing, and I'll think about it and I'll have stuff by the time we play. I'll put some brain power behind it and figure it out. But I guess it means that I always have fun with this stuff because I don't know what they're going to do. I didn't know. I had no idea. I had no idea they were going to end up in this direction. Like I was ready for them to I'd plotted out like what the hexes would look like as they were traveling down, what the next town was going to be, kind of where they were, and then just all this stuff happened. We're like, wow, they're going to end up back at that witch's house. It just and then just that happening just turned everything on its head again. After things had been turned on its head from the dragon thing, which just turned everything in a whole new perspective, going from doing the Caves of Chaos to doing something completely different, then thrown on its head, and now kind of thrown on its head again. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen with that. And I think part of what, to the extent that I say this is working, I think part of it is when you can bring in these other elements from the world. Like I think it makes more sense. It seems more grounded in a weird way because these events that happened earlier, even if on my end of the screen it's just dice and I'm just kind of putting lines together that don't really exist. The fact that they can tie what's happening to them now and this thing to something that was happening to them before in sort of the similar area, right? Just makes it feel like it's all of a piece and it's not just like, oh, just stuff happening, and it could be a line that you can cross and just get to where things like don't make any sense. So you got to be really, really careful. And I do, even though it might seem like, well, he doesn't prep at all. He just whips stuff off the top of his head. I do a lot of like brain thinking about like, well, what's going to happen here? And then I kind of I have these ideas. And then sometimes the dice, like last night, really helped bring some of that stuff out. And other times dice decide to move in another direction. I mean, that other game, I was ready to have them go like south the ring goes south. Have them go south and do this thing, and suddenly the dice and their decisions just pulled them in a whole different direction. But because I hadn't spent tons of time prepping that stuff, I was fine to let it go, and I wasn't. And instead of because I could have just had it like, well, the portal's closed, or it's just woods now, or whatever. But I was like, no, it makes too much sense. There's too much symmetry going on for me to not go with back at the witch's house, if that makes sense. Terrence says coaxing decisions out of a group can be more harrowing than combat encounters. Yes, I think it helps that my group is very small. We had three. One of them moved and has like too much family stuff going on. Not sure if they're going to come back or not. So I only have two right now, which means that, and they're both kind of similar mind. So there's less. So the other guy was kind of the wild card who made a lot of fun stuff happen, but also got them in trouble also. And so now they're like, it doesn't take them too long. I think the biggest decisions they have had some discussion over like which of their kind of curses to try to get rid of and some of that things, but it doesn't tend to take them super long. The one player probably has more of a I don't want to say he has like a overriding analysis paralysis, but he'll definitely like really think things out. Where the other guy's more like, all right, let's just make a decision. Bullet Catcher says you have seats at the table. I don't know. You know this. So Bullet Catcher. I didn't. I did not. I did not initiate this game. I was one of the players who I knew in person, met a few times at like an adult gaming night, and whatever that was happening locally, and we talked and kind of became friendly. And then he's really the person who's I would say like of like the game is kind of the owner of the game. He asked me, "Hey, would you be open to GMing for us? You know, for I don't want to get some people we want with to play. Would you be open for jamming?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And then I kind of pitched I think I talked about this in one of my other streams. I kind of pitched playing BX for a number of reasons for myself, and they were open to that, which they were, worked out. So I really leave anything like to do with like recruitment and stuff. I kind of like say like this is your game. Like this is not my game. It's your game. So I don't if they want to open it up and recruit, then they said like, hey, do you know anybody? Then I would maybe see if there's anybody I know or even put it out online, but I think they actually kind of like the two, and it's fine with me. I think it's been fun doing two. I don't do anything differently. It doesn't affect my prep at all. And I told them that it's like you're not getting a Scarlet Heroes like bump. I'm not rolling less dice or subtracting if it's 2D, 2D8 knolls in the random encounter. I'm gonna roll 2D8, and it's up to you to deal with it how you see fit. So I guess ultimately I don't really look at it as my table. And right now they're fine with the two. I think they're kind of hoping the other guy will come back, but I don't know. If we'll see. We'll see down the line. At one point, I know that they were thinking about they asked somebody else, and then that person didn't pan out. And I think since then they've kind of felt like, you know what, we're good with what we have. That's fine. If I was running a game myself, then I would definitely be more open. I would love to do something. I mean, that's kind of like on my wish list of things to do is to run more, maybe do more games, maybe do some one shots, do something, do it on stream. These guys, this is kind of like a home game. I'm not trying to, I always feel like I see these stories on Reddit and things where people kind of try to push people into being their stream game, like take their home game and make it their stream game. And there's always, and I'm not trying to do that. Like these guys, it's our game. I talk about it here because I know they don't watch. So I can reveal things that are going on or reveal the lack of things that are going on. And that's good. But if I was doing like some kind of stream game, I would maybe try to figure something out. But no, this to me is it's the one guy's game, and I'm just guest DMing for a stretch. Anybody else have any last thoughts, comments, questions, anything at all before I close this up? I will not be streaming tomorrow because I will be at PAX. You'll probably see some videos, some shorts or something from me. Maybe if it's in the evening and I'm sitting in a hotel room, I suppose I might do something, but probably I always had the best intentions. Like, yeah, I'm gonna get up and stream again, and then I don't. Bullcatcher says they enjoy DMing in OSR sandbox. Well, thanks, Bullcatcher. I mean, look, I don't pretend, I don't pretend to be the world's greatest GM or anything. The best I could say is that it's my style is meshed with these players, which has been good. I mean, that's really the big I think that's partly why they haven't been keen to like open up the group and try to get a whole bunch of people in there is because we're all sort of like, yeah, like everything kind of works well. It gets very outside of scheduling issues. There's really no static. There's no weird tensions. There's nothing like that. So I think that it's I'm sure as you can this happens to everybody when you have a group and you got good kind of chemistry and a good sort of flow and everything feels good, kind of part of you might be like, yeah, I'd like to get more people, but then you're also thinking like, does that screw up what I already got? And what I've already got is just it's good, So why risk it for another person? And I think that's kind of where they're at, which is fine. Terrence says, I pretend but I know that I'm faking. Oh, come on, Terrence. You were a good DM. Everybody should go watch Terrence's DMing for Homebrew Detritus. And I guest starred for one. If you ever want to host an online game, they'd love to join. Normal dude who just wants to throw math rocks. Aren't we all, Bullcatcher? Well, if I can swing it, this is one of those things that like, if I can swing it through whatever, getting more creator famous that I can get more resources, things to do things like that, I would. Um, for now, I'll just talk about my home game and hopefully folks find it useful. I was trying to think if there's any lessons I learned, and I see we're over the hour, so I want to let folks get about their daily business. But I would say the one thing that maybe I didn't say I learned, but just reinforced: give yourself those open spaces. Don't seal every door. Don't fill every crack. Because it's the fact that I didn't write off what happened to that person, what happened to those hyena creatures, left them there to be called back later. And I think we have a tendency to want to dot all the I's, cross all the T's, and just lock everything in place. Give yourself some room. If it hasn't come out, or if you want to write out what's happened, that's fine. But if it hasn't been revealed on the table yet, if no one's actually learned this information, then just think of it as quantum. It's hasn't been really written yet until it's out there, right? So even though you may have an idea, be open to changing the idea because a lot of the stuff that I've had really fun moments with has been things that I've just let hang out there until something else kind of brings it back in, and then it's like, oh, I need a thread. Oh, look, there's this thread. So it seems like for a while it's just this kind of loose thread, but then that thread is there for you when you need it. And I think often we want to kind of cut the thread, burn it, get it all stitched in there, and then when something happens, we don't have that. So think of those things as kind of resources to use. Make a list of them, keep note of them. Um, and if you have a great idea, great. But if not, don't feel like you have to do something with it just because if the party isn't around, the party isn't investigating, if they're not interacting with it, then who knows what's happening? And just let it be kind of a, I don't know. And then if it comes up again, great. If it comes up, if it doesn't, then it probably wasn't really important to know anyway. Aaron says, thanks for the plug. Of course. All right. Bullcatcher says, take care and have a good time at PAX. I will. Thanks. And anyone else, if you end up at PAX, come find me. You know what I look like mostly. So just come holler. I'll try. Like I said, I'll try to post some stuff from over there. So you'll probably see some videos from me over the weekend, but no stream on the morrow for the after that. I suppose you end up watching or listening to this later. Just have a great rest of your day or night. And game on, everybody. Bye now.